After years of delays, a unique behind-the-scenes scandal, and superlative praise from the likes of Tom Cruise and Stephen King, The Flash unfortunately does not live up to the hype. Not even close. It's a complete mess of a movie. It's a lot of fun and there are some really great sequences, but the film as a whole doesn't hold together. The story feels aimless, the visual effects are hideous, the payoffs aren't satisfying, and in the end it leaves more questions unanswered than answered. The saving graces like Michael Keaton's Batman and the creatively crafted action scenes are worth the price of admission, but this is not, as advertised, one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. This video will contain full spoilers for The Flash, so if you haven't seen it yet, you'd better run like the wind. I'll start off with my biggest complaint about The Flash. All the coolest shit was in the trailers. With Zod's armies and 2 Batmen in action, the Flash trailers made it look like they were just showing you the tip of the iceberg and that there was even more multiversal madness to come in the actual movie. But it turns out the trailers basically already showed us the whole movie. The only thing they left out was the Speed Force sequence towards the end, where all the canons of the different DC franchises come crashing together with some very distasteful CG resurrections of dead actors. And they probably only neglected to spoil that because it's far and away the worst part of the movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was a really bad idea to release The Flash right after Across the Spider-Verse, because having Spider-Verse fresh in your memory makes The Flash's flaws painfully obvious. Across the Spider-Verse has basically the exact same premise of a young superhero defying the space-time continuum to save a parent from their inevitable canonical death, and Spider-Verse did it so much better. Across the Spider-Verse has cool cameos and fun little meta nods to the franchise history on top of a great story, but The Flash has cameos and meta nods in lieu of a great story. There isn't even really much of a story. It's like they decided which cameos they wanted and built the story around that. The story often feels aimless, with no indication of where it's all going, and no real villain. The Flash starts off with a compelling, relatable hook about a grieving son who will risk the universe to save his mother. But it quickly puts that storyline in the back seat in favor of overdone superhero movie tropes like sky beams and faceless alien armies.
You are.
Yeah. I'm Batman.
I have to admit that as a third Michael Keaton Batman movie, The Flash is pretty awesome. The filmmakers could be accused of overusing Danny Elfman's Batman theme. At least a few notes of it play every single time the Bat is on screen. But it's such an iconic theme, and it makes your spine tingle every time you hear it, so it's hard to complain. It was nice to hear that Keaton's tenure as Batman in the Burton movies made a real difference, as it's mentioned that he turned Gotham into one of the safest cities on Earth. And I loved the whole coming out of retirement for one last adventure narrative. Despite being a little older and out of practice, this Batman hasn't lost his mojo. He swoops around beating up goons, he skydives without a parachute, and he goes toe-to-toe with an alien god. I welled up during his death scene because Keaton nailed the emotions, and it was the perfect ending to his story. In his final moments, Bruce thanks Barry for giving a reclusive old-timer one last chance to be Batman. Keaton's scenes in The Flash are like a great movie stuffed into the middle of a mediocre one.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Remember Ghostbusters? Oh, I remember.
But for all the love and warmth and nostalgia you feel whenever Michael Keaton is on screen, you get the exact opposite feeling whenever Ezra Miller is on screen, which is a lot. The Flash has a great cast full of scene stealers like Keaton and Sasha Calle and Michael Shannon and Kiersey Clemons and Ben Affleck and Ron Livingston. But Ezra Miller is undeniably the star of the movie, and they're very reluctant to share the spotlight with anyone but themselves. You can't watch their performance in this and not think about all the crazy shit in their personal life at the back of your mind. And even if they weren't a deranged serial criminal in real life, their awkward shtick on screen is borderline unbearable. Barry is a whiny little shit throughout the whole film. He's like Tom Holland's Peter Parker with none of the charm. The movie is just about watchable with one Ezra, and then they go and introduce a second Ezra. I will admit, there are some really funny moments between the two Barrys, but as we all expected, the Flash is the worst character in The Flash. Saoirse Monica Jackson, best known as Erin from Derry Girls, has a blink and miss it role as Barry's kooky friend Patty. Whenever she was on screen, I couldn't help wishing I was watching a film starring her instead of a film starring two Ezra Millers.
My name is Kara.
I'm Barry. We're Barry.
You're absolutely stealing my thunder.
I don't want to shit on VFX artists because they're overworked and underpaid, but even conceptually, the climactic Speed Force sequence is a horrible mess. That kind of scene where the frame is jam-packed with bursts of cosmic energy looks fine when it's drawn in comic form, but it just looks ugly when you try and realize it in live action. This is when the movie really loses the plot and gives up on trying to have any substance whatsoever. It's just a flurry of CGI where the canons of various DC franchises come crashing into each other. Not only was it in incredibly poor taste to drag Christopher Reeve and Adam West out of their graves for some cheap fan service, it was also a really baffling way to end the movie. The story introduces some really interesting themes like the inevitability of death and the struggle to let go. But this climactic set piece has nothing to do with any of that. It's just a flimsy excuse to cram Batman and Superman into the movie. It doesn't feel like the organic conclusion of this story. It feels like Warner Brothers, ahead of their big reboot, telling the audience, hey, remember how great DC movies used to be? In the easiest, laziest, most offensive way possible. And on that point, the post-credits scene seems to exist purely as a futile attempt to convince the audience that Aquaman 2 will actually matter, with Barry telling Aquaman that he looks more or less the same in alternate realities, giving James Gunn and co. the option to keep Jason Momoa in the role. You can pander all you want, Warner Brothers. Either way, you'll be taking a massive loss on Aquaman 2.
May I?
Please.
Do you want me to...
Oh, so nice of you. Mr.
George. My name's George.
The final cameo turns the whole movie into a joke. Everything seems to have gone back to normal, and Barry's dad has been exonerated of the crime he didn't commit. And then Bruce Wayne steps out of his car to meet up with his young ward, and lo and behold, it's George Clooney. This final scene could have been a lot more cathartic if it brought back Keaton as originally planned. Apparently the Clooney cameo was a last-minute change, and it kind of ruins the whole film. Nothing against George Clooney, or even his Batman. I actually kind of like the campy Adam Westian style of the Schumacher movies.
Never leave the cave without it.
But his return in The Flash is completely pointless. It undoes the sacrifices Barry had to make to fix the timeline, and Clooney's appearance has absolutely no deeper meaning beyond, hey, look who it is. Clooney isn't going to be the DCU's new Batman, and no one, not even Clooney himself, was all that interested in seeing him reprise the role. It just ends an already baffling movie on an even more baffling note.
Hi.
The Flash isn't the worst comic book movie ever made, but after being hyped up as one of the very best, it's definitely a letdown. There's no escaping the fact that this is a corporate product. This isn't a touching story that someone plumbed the depths of their soul to tell. Like most superhero movies, it's a selling tool. It's made to sell movie tickets, comic books, action figures, and aggressively weaponized nostalgia. It's a fun ride, but you won't leave the cinema feeling particularly moved. If you want to watch a moving, exhilarating, profound superhero multiverse adventure, just go and watch Across the Spider-Verse again.
All stations, stop Spider-Man! You? What, me?
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.